The morning sky above Zephyr Prime shimmered with colors that had no names. Two suns hung in the heavens like jewels, casting their light through the crystal towers that rose from the planet's surface like frozen music. The Zephyrians moved through, their floating cities with grace, their blue skin catching the rainbow light as they went about their daily work. Elder Vexthera stood at the top of the tallest spire, watching her people below. They were a peaceful race, had been for thousands of years. War was something they read about in old books, a concept so foreign to their minds that they could barely understand it. Their weapons were tools for mining and construction. Their armies were groups of artists and builders. She should have been happy. The harvest festivals were starting soon, and the young ones were practicing their songs. The crystal gardens were blooming with flowers that sang in the wind. Everything was perfect, just as it had been for generations. But something felt wrong. A shadow at the edge of space that made her forearms tremble with fear she could not name. The shadow became real 3 days later. The ships came from the dark between stars, black as the void itself. They moved like hungry insects, swarming towards Zephyr Prime with terrible purpose. Zephyrians had never seen anything like them. The vessels seemed alive, their hulls pulsing with green veins, their weapons growing from their sides like teeth. "What are they?" asked Vexthera, as aide, her voice shaking as they watched the alien fleet fill their sky. "I do not know," Vexthera whispered, "but I fear we are about to learn." The first attack came without warning. Green fire fell from the sky like poison rain, turning their beautiful crystal towers into smoking ruins. The aliens landed in the wreckage, and the Zephyrians saw their faces for the first time. They were nightmares given form. Tall as two Zephyrians, covered in black shell-like armor that clicked when they moved. Their faces were insect-like, with too many eyes and mandibles that dripped with acid. They walked on 6 legs and carried weapons that looked like they had been grown rather than built. The Krillians, as they called themselves, had come to harvest. Within hours, half the planet was burning. The Zephyrians tried to fight back with their construction tools, but it was like trying to stop a flood with flower petals. Their peaceful society had no concept of military tactics, no understanding of war. They were children facing monsters. Krillians set up processing centers in the ruins of Zephyrian cities. They herded the blue-skinned people like cattle, sorting them by size and health. The strong were taken to work camps. The weak were taken to feeding chambers. The children were kept for breeding stock. Vexthera hid in the underground shelters, with the other survivors watching through spy cameras as her world died. The Krillians moved through the crystal cities like a plague, consuming everything in their path. They ate the metal from their buildings, drank the water from their lakes, even breathed in the gases from their atmosphere. "We have to do something," said Kexnara, one of the younger elders. "We cannot just hide while our people are taken." "What can we do?" Vexnara replied, her voice hollow with despair. "We are not warriors. We do not know how to fight creatures like these." But even as she spoke, she was thinking, the Zephyrians might not be fighters, but they were the most advanced communicators in the galaxy. Their quantum radios could send messages across vast distances, reaching any civilization with the technology to listen. "We send a message," she said suddenly. "We tell the galaxy what is happening here. Someone might help us. Who would risk their lives for strangers?" asked Kexnara. Vexthera did not know. But it was their only hope. The message they created was unlike anything ever broadcast across the galaxy. It was not just words or pictures, but pure emotion transmitted through quantum waves. Fear, pain, desperation, love for children who would never grow up. Sorrow for a peaceful world turned into hell. They showed the galaxy what the Krillians were doing. The processing centers where Zephyrians were sorted like objects. The feeding chambers where the weak were consumed. The breeding pens where their children were kept like animals. All of it transmitted with the psychic weight of a dying civilization. "Please," Vexthera spoke into the quantum transmitter, her forearms shaking as she held the device. "Anyone who can hear this message, we beg for your help. We are a peaceful people. We have never hurt anyone. But these creatures, these Krillians, They are destroying everything we have ever built, everyone we have ever loved. If there is mercy anywhere in the galaxy, if there is justice, please help us. We do not ask for conquest or revenge. We only ask for the right to live." The message went out across space, traveling faster than light, reaching every corner of the galaxy. Most civilizations that received it felt sad but did nothing. The Krillian swarm was too powerful, too dangerous. Better to strengthen their own defenses and hope the monsters would pass them by. But the message traveled farther than most signals ever had. Reaching the very edge of known space where a small blue world orbited a yellow star, a world that most galactic civilizations avoided, considering it too dangerous and violent to produce anything worthwhile. They were about to learn how wrong they were about the death world called Earth. The message from Zephyr. Prime reached Earth at 3 in the morning, Seoul time. Lieutenant Park Min-ho was drinking his 5th cup of coffee in the Global Space Defense Command Center when the quantum receiver began screaming with incoming data. The translation computers worked for 2 hours before they could make sense of what they were receiving when the holographic display finally showed the images from the dying world. The entire command center fell silent. Burning crystal cities, blue-skinned people being dragged away by insect monsters, children crying for parents who would never come home. The Zephyrian elder's voice echoed through the speakers, raw with pain and desperation. "Turn it off," whispered Dr. Lee Jinwoo, the head scientist. His face was pale as he watched a Krillian soldier throw a Zephyrian child into a processing cage. "I cannot watch anymore." But General Kim Sora did not move. She stood with her arms crossed, her weathered face hard as stone. She had seen war. Before, had fought in the water wars, when half of Asia was drowning and the other half was burning. But this was different. This was genocide on a scale that made human conflicts look like playground fights. "How far?" she asked quietly. 14 days at maximum speed," Park Min-ho replied. "But General, we barely have a space fleet. Our biggest ship is the Indomitable, and it was built for exploration, not war. These Krillians have been conquering worlds for thousands of years." "We are outgunned," Kim Sora said. "What else is new?" A nervous laugh came from somewhere in the room. Humans had a strange habit of making jokes when death was staring them in the face. It was something that had kept them alive through ice ages, plagues, and wars that should have destroyed them completely. "General," said Dr. Lee, "we should think about this carefully. First contact with an alien species is a delicate matter. We need diplomats, scientists, proper protocols." "Those people do not have time for protocols," Kim Sora replied. "They have maybe 2 weeks before there are none of them left to save." The debate that followed went on for hours. Politicians worried about starting an interstellar war. Scientists feared that humanity was not ready for galactic politics. Military leaders calculated odds that made seasoned soldiers want to quit and become farmers. But in the end, it came down to something simple, something that made humans different from every other species they would eventually meet. Captain Cho Daeon was in the shipyard working on the Indomitable when the call came through. He was a young man for a ship captain, only 32, but he had earned his rank during the Mars colony crisis when pirates tried to hold 2 million people hostage. He knew how to fight against impossible odds. "Captain," the voice crackled. Through his communicator, "you need to get to command. Now." An hour later, he was standing in the briefing room looking at images that would give him nightmares for the rest of his life. The Zephyrian message played again, and he watched those. Beautiful crystal cities burn while their people screamed for help. "We are putting together a fleet," General Kim told him. 6 ships? The Indomitable, 3 converted mining vessels, a research ship, and a cargo hauler, 2,000 volunteers, Marines, engineers, doctors, anyone brave enough or crazy enough to fly into hell. "What are our chances?" Cho asked. Kim Sora was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, we will probably all die. These Krillians have weapons we cannot imagine, ships bigger than our cities, and they have been doing this for millennia. We are sending wooden boats against steel warships. Then, why are we going?" The general looked at the frozen image on the display. A Zephyrian mother holding her baby while Krillian soldiers approached. The woman's face showed pure terror, but also love. She was willing to die to protect her child. Because someone has to, Kim said simply. Because if we do nothing, an entire species dies while we sit here safe and comfortable. Because sometimes being human means doing the right thing even when it is stupid. The fleet that assembled 3 days later was not impressive. The Indomitable looked like a metal whale surrounded by minnows. The mining ship Soul's Hammer and Bison's Pride still had their industrial equipment attached. Discovery was painted bright yellow, as if it was going on a scientific expedition instead of a war. But the people aboard those ships were different. They were volunteers, every single one. They had seen the Zephyrian message and decided that they could not live with themselves if they did nothing. Teachers who wanted to protect alien children, engineers who wanted to rebuild burned cities, Marines who wanted to fight monsters. Captain Cho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as they prepared to jump faster than light speed. Through the viewport, he could see Earth hanging in space like a blue marble. Home, the world that had made them into what they were through millions of years of disasters, wars and struggles. Send a message to the Zephyrians, he ordered his communications officer. Tell them help is coming. Tell them that Earth has heard their cry for mercy. The fleet jumped to FTL, disappearing into the dark between stars. Behind them, Earth continued its ancient dance around the sun, unaware that its children were about to teach the galaxy what it meant to be human in the depths of space. The message raced ahead of them, reaching Zephyr Prime hours before the ships would arrive. In the underground shelters where the survivors hid, Elder Vexathura received the transmission with trembling hands. Help is coming, she whispered to the others. The Death World called Earth has answered our call. None of them knew what that meant. They were about to find out. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zephyr system and found themselves staring at hell. Captain Cho Daeon gripped the railing of his bridge as the tactical display filled with red dots. 27 Krillian. Bioships surrounded the dying planet, like vultures around a corpse. The alien vessels were unlike anything humans had ever imagined. Each one was the size of a small city, their hulls pulsing with green veins that carried nutrients through living metal. Weapon pods grew from their sides like tumors, and their engines left trails of organic waste that looked like blood in space. Wheat. Mother of God, whispered Sergeant Han Boyang from the marine deck. Through the armored viewport, he could see Zephyr Prime burning. What had once been a garden world was now scarred with massive craters where the Krillians had stripped away entire continents for raw materials. All ships, this is Captain Cho, the young commander broadcast to his small fleet. Remember, these things have never fought humans before. They do not know what we can do. That is our only advantage. The first Krillian ship to notice them was a medium-sized harvester, its biohull covered in sensor organs that looked like giant eyes. It turned toward the human fleet with the slow confidence of a predator that had never met anything it could not kill. That confidence lasted exactly 12 seconds. The converted mining ship, Soul's Hammer, opened fire with its industrial plasma. Cutter's weapons designed to slice through asteroids and space debris. The focused beam of superheated matter punched through the Krillian's organic armor like a hot knife through butter. Green blood sprayed into space as the alien ship writhed in agony. Possible, hissed Hive Commander Gexstar aboard the primary Krillian vessel. His compound eyes reflected the explosion as Soul's Hammer tore through 2 more bioships with its mining equipment. How are these primitives destroying our vessels? The answer was simple. The Krillians had evolved their bio-armor to resist the energy weapons used by most galactic civilizations. But they had never faced industrial tools turned into weapons of war, plasma cutters that could melt through solid rock, magnetic grapples that could crush steel, mining charges that could crack open asteroids. The human fleet moved through space like a pack of wolves, using tactics that made no sense to the Krillian hive mind. They split up when they should have stayed together. They used debris as weapons, ramming damaged alien ships with chunks of destroyed biohull. They even used their own smaller vessels as missiles, evacuating the crew at the last second before impact. These humans fight like madmen, reported Subcommander Victrell. Watching a human cargo ship ram itself into a Krillian destroyer, they show no regard for their own safety. What the Krillians did not understand was that humans had been fighting desperate battles for survival since they first crawled out of the oceans on their death world. They knew how to turn weakness into strength, how to use enemy weapons against their owners, how to win fights they should have lost. The real horror began when the human Marines made planetfall. Corporal Jung Sumi was in the first drop pod to hit the surface of Zephyr Prime. As the metal capsule crashed through the atmosphere, she could see the devastation below. Crystal cities reduced to smoking ruins. Processing centers were Krillian. Soldiers sorted their blue-skinned captives like cattle. Feeding stations where the weak were consumed to fuel the alien war machine. Remember, she spoke into her helmet radio as her squad prepared for landing. We are not here to conquer. We are here to save people. Every Zephyrian we rescue is a victory. The drop pod hit the ground hard, its impact crater adding one more scar to the dying world. Jung Sumi was the first one out, her assault rifle already tracking 4 targets. What she saw made her stomach turn. A group of Krillian soldiers was herding Zephyrian children toward a processing center. The alien warriors were twice the height of a human, their black carapaces gleaming with acid that could dissolve bone. Their mandibles clicked as they communicated in their insect language, treating their captives like livestock. "Contact front," Jung Sumi called out, dropping to one knee and opening fire. The Krillians had never faced human weapons before. Their bio-armor was designed to stop energy blasts and plasma bolts, not the high-velocity metal slugs that humans still used. The first alien soldier went down with green blood spraying from multiple holes in its chest. The second one turned toward the humans with confusion in its compound eyes, not understanding how such small creatures could hurt it. That confusion lasted until Jung Sumi's squad hit it with a rocket launcher. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Krillians fought with bioweapons that could melt flesh, acid sprayers that could dissolve armor, living projectiles that burrowed through ship hulls. They were apex predators, the top of their evolutionary ladder, feared across a dozen star systems. But humans were different. They used the ruins of crystal buildings as cover, turning destroyed alien equipment into improvised weapons. When a Krillian acid sprayer tried to flush them out of a collapsed tower, they used the building's own ventilation system to redirect the acid back at their attackers. In the underground shelters where the Zephyrian survivors hid, Elder Vexthera watched the battle through surveillance cameras. She had expected their rescuers to be like her own people, advanced, civilized, peaceful. Instead, she was watching creatures that moved like liquid death through the battlefield. "Beings are these?" whispered her aide. Watching a human soldier rip a bioweapon from a dead Krillian's claws and immediately figure out how to use it against its former owners. Vexthera was quiet for a long moment, studying the humans as they fought with a creativity that defied understanding. It seemed to thrive in conditions that would break most civilized minds. "I believe," she said softly, "we have just met the galaxy's apex predators." 6 months had passed since the first battle at Zephyr Prime, and the war had spread like wildfire across 3 star systems. What the Krillian swarm expected to be a quick cleanup of primitive aliens had become their worst nightmare. The humans were not just fighting back, they were winning. Major Yoon Minji stood in the command center built inside a captured Krillian processing facility on the moon of Kethver. The irony was not lost on her. The same chambers where aliens had sorted Zephyrians for slaughter now served as briefing rooms for human Marines. Around her, holographic displays showed the war spreading across 12 different worlds. "Ma'am, we have confirmation from the 3rd Marines," reported Lieutenant Nam Hyok, looking up from his communication console. "They have taken the biofoundry on Zerion. They want permission to use the captured Krillian ships for the next assault." Minji nodded with grim satisfaction. It was a perfectly human solution. Steal the enemy's weapons and use them better than the enemy ever could. The Krillians were learning that humans did not just adapt to new situations, they improved on them. Across the galaxy, Panic was spreading through Krillian space faster than their fastest ships. For 10,000 years, the swarm had conquered world after world with the same tactics. Drop from space, overwhelm the defenders with superior numbers and bioweapons, then harvest the survivors. It had never failed, until now. The humans fought in ways that made no sense to the Krillian hive mind. They used the vacuum of space as a weapon, opening airlocks to suck enemies into the void. They fought effectively in toxic atmospheres that should have killed them in minutes. Most terrifying of all, they seemed to enjoy the challenge. These Deathworlders have established a pattern, reported Hive Tactician Velmoth to the Krillian High Command, his insect voice clicking with fear. They do not simply destroy our forces, study us, learn from us, then use our own methods against us with improvements we never considered. It was true. On the ice world of Excalar, human engineers had taken captured Krillian bioships and modified them with human technology. The result was vessels that combined alien adaptability with human innovation. Ships that could heal their own wounds while firing weapons that no Krillian had ever imagined. On the gas giant Nethgoline, human marines had learned to use the planet's crushing atmosphere as a training ground. They emerged from their exercises able to fight in conditions that would flatten most galactic species. The Krillians who tried to ambush them there found themselves facing soldiers, who moved like ghosts through poisonous clouds, but perhaps most disturbing to the Krillian hive mind was what happened in the liberated territories. The humans did not behave like conquerors. Instead of enslaving the Zephyrians, they protected them. Instead of taking their technology, they shared their own. Instead of demanding tribute, they offered aid in the refugee camps on New Zephyr Station. Elder Vexthera worked alongside Dr. Kungjuan, a human scientist who had volunteered for the relief mission. She watched human medics treating Zephyrian children who had been traumatized by the war, their gentle hands working to heal wounds that went deeper than flesh. "Your people confuse me," Vexthera admitted as they walked through the camp. "You are the most effective warriors I have ever seen, yet you show such kindness to strangers. How is this possible?" Dr. Kong smiled, watching a group of human soldiers teaching Zephyrian youngsters how to play soccer with a ball made from recycled ship parts. Earth taught us that the universe is a dangerous place. We learned to fight because we had to, but we also learned that the strong should protect the weak, not prey on them. As if to prove his point, a squad of Marines passed by, their armor still smoking from recent combat, and they stopped when they saw the Zephyrian children, kneeling down to show them pictures of their own families back on Earth. The soldiers' laughter mixed with the musical tones of Zephyrian voices, creating a sound that had never existed before in the galaxy. "We are apex predators," Kong continued, "but we chose to become guardians instead of monsters. Pain taught us how to fight. Love taught us who to fight for. The war was changing the humans, too." Captain Cho Daeon, now promoted to Admiral, commanded a fleet of 60 ships from a dozen different worlds. Zephyrian crystal ships flew alongside human vessels, their rainbow hulls reflecting the light of alien suns. Converted Krillian bioships served under human crews who had learned to make the living vessels even deadlier than their original owners ever imagined. In the Krillian core territories, fear was becoming something the swarm had never experienced. A strategic factor. Hive commanders who had conquered 100 worlds without hesitation now hesitated before engaging human forces. They had learned that fighting Deathworlders was not like fighting any other species. Humans did not just win battles. They turned every defeat into a learning experience, every victory into a stepping stone for the next assault. They fought with a creativity that seemed to come from the chaotic nature of their homeworld itself. Sir Lieutenant Name reported, 2 major Yoon, long-range scouts, are detecting massive Krillian fleet movements toward their core worlds. It looks like they are pulling back their outer defenses. Yoon studied the tactical display, watching red markers retreat toward the heart of Krillian space. They are going to make their final stand at the core worlds. Everything they have left all in one place. Should we pursue? Yoon was quiet for a moment, thinking about the Zephyrian children in the refugee camps, about the dozen worlds that had already been liberated, about the millions of beings who were breathing free air because humans had decided to answer a cry for help. "Yes," she said finally. "We finished this, once and for all." The final battle was coming, and both sides knew it. The question was not whether the humans would win. It was what kind of galaxy would exist when the fighting finally stopped. The final battle began at the edge of Krillian space, where the ancient core worlds hung like diseased jewels in the darkness. Admiral Beek Jihan stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, humanity's newest warship, watching as his combined fleet of 67 vessels approached the heart of the enemy empire. It was no longer just a human fleet. Zephyrian crystal ships with their singing hulls flew alongside Earth's metal warships. Stubby Gornish battlecruisers, freed from Krillian slavery just months before, bristled with weapons eager for revenge. Even captured bioships served under human crews, their living hulls modified with human technology into something the original Krillians would not recognize. "All ships, this is Admiral Beek," he broadcast across the fleet. "Today we end this war, not for conquest, not for revenge, but because no species should have to live in fear. Remember what we are fighting for." The Krillian defense was unlike anything they had faced before. Bioships the size of moons emerged from the shadow of planets, their hulls covered in weapon pods that had been growing for centuries. The space around the core worlds writhed with living minds, creatures bred specifically to destroy enemy vessels. And at the center of it all, the primary hive, a structure so massive it had its own gravity, where the first queen had ruled for 10,000 years. The psychic assault hit first. The combined mental power of every hive queen in Krillian space pressed against the minds of the attacking fleet, trying to drive the enemy crews insane with visions of horror and death. It was a weapon that had broken the will of 100 conquered species, but humans were different. Their chaotic, violent homeworld had given them minds that were already used to horror. The psychic attack that should have reduced them to gibbering madness instead just made them angry. "Interesting," Admiral Beek said calmly as images of Earth's worst disasters flashed through his mind. Volcanoes, tsunamis, ice ages that had tried to kill his species for millions of years. "They think showing us natural disasters will scare us. They do not understand that we are the children of disasters." The space battle that followed lasted 14 hours. Krillian bioships that could crack planets found themselves facing human vessels that refused to die. When the UES Soul was crippled by living minds, its crew used the ship's reactor as a bomb, taking 3 enemy vessels with them. When Zephyrian Crystal's ships were overwhelmed by biofighters, human marines boarded the enemy craft and turned their own weapons against them. But the real war was being fought inside the primary hive itself. Captain Osungmin led a strike. Team of 50 marines through corridors that pulsed like arteries, fighting past defenses that had been designed to kill any intruder. The Krillians threw everything at them: acid that could dissolve armor, living walls that tried to digest the invaders, pheromone weapons designed to drive enemies insane with fear. "Sir," called Sergeant Park Yaji over the com, her voice strained, as she fought off a corridor that had come alive to crush her squad. "I am reading massive biosignatures moving toward our position. Looks like we have the Queen's attention," Gutsung-min replied, checking his weapon. "Let's go meet her." The final confrontation took place in the heart of the primary hive, where the first queen waited in a throne room made of living bone. She was ancient beyond measure, her massive body fused with the biomachinery that controlled the entire Krillian Empire. Her compound eyes had witnessed the conquest of 1,000 worlds, the enslavement of 1 billion beings. She hissed, her psychic voice filling their minds with images of Earth burning. "You have made a terrible mistake. When I am finished with you, your homeworld will be consumed, and your species will serve as food for my children." Captain O stepped forward, his tactical armor scarred from the fighting, his rifle trained on the creature that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Around him, his marines spread out, their weapons ready. "You know what your problem is?" he said conversationally, as if he were discussing the weather instead of facing the most dangerous being in known space. "You have been the apex predator for so long that you forgot what it feels like to be hunted." The EMP devices that his team had planted throughout the hive detonated simultaneously, severing the Queen's connection to her fleet. For the first time in her ancient life, she was alone, cut off from the hive mind that had defined her existence. For 10,000 years, the battle that followed was brief but vicious. The first Queen fought with the desperate fury of a cornered animal, her bioweapons carving through armor and flesh. But she was facing something she had never encountered before: humans who had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every single day. When it was over, the Queen lay dead in her throne of bone, her compound eyes reflecting the lights of human weapons for the last time. The surrender came 6 hours later, not from the Queen, who had died fighting, but from the remaining hive commanders who realized that their empire had crumbled around them. Without the psychic network that bound them together, the Krillian swarm fell apart like a house of cards. But the true victory came in what happened next. Human medical ships moved through the liberated worlds, healing the damage the Krillians had done. Engineers helped rebuild cities that had been destroyed. Teachers shared knowledge with species that had forgotten how to defend themselves. Elder Vexthera stood in the gardens of New Zephyr City, watching human children play with Zephyrian youngsters in the crystal fountains. Admiral Beak approached, having traded his military uniform for simple civilian clothes. "Your people could have taken everything," she said. "The technology, the territory, the power over other species. Instead, you are leaving." Smiled, watching the children laugh as they chased holographic butterflies through the air. "We never wanted an empire. We just wanted to help. But why risk everything for strangers?" The Admiral was quiet for a moment, because long ago, when humanity was young and weak, we made ourselves a promise. We swore that if we ever became strong enough to protect others, we would. Today, we kept that promise. As the human fleet prepared to leave, taking no tribute and claiming no territory, the galaxy finally understood what made these Deathworlders truly dangerous. It was not their weapons, or their tactics, or their refusal to surrender. It was their humanity.